The title of my talk this morning is, Are You Looking in the Right Direction? I met a family recently who asked me to officiate the memorial service of their father. The gentleman whose service I was officiating was a Unity person, and in fact he had started the Unity Church in Boerne, Texas many years ago. This man apparently lived a colorful life in his early days. He'd been married 6 times. He'd had 3 girls by different moms and had his share of living a wild life. However, somewhere along the way, he discovered Unity and had worked through all his misgivings. This was a very inspirational group of people. They were very caring of each other, and the energy of the day was love. There were 2 daughters of the gentleman who had died. They had different moms and had only met each other the last 10 years. Both were in their 60s. There was a 3rd daughter that had died a few years ago from yet another mom, and none of them ever got to know her. Now, as you might imagine, all these mothers had been bitter about their divorces from this man and had kept their daughters from ever knowing their dad or even who he was. And these mothers kept these girls from knowing each other. After the mothers died, these 2 girls chose to connect with their father and with each other, though neither of them had ever heard good things about their father. It was certainly a shock to discover, when they connected with their dad, that they had siblings and other family relatives that they never knew existed. But the beauty of the day for me was that these 2 daughters and all their families truly loved each other. They truly loved their father. And they were totally generous with loving each other. The younger daughter made sure the older daughter was comfortable and well cared for at the service, for she had had back surgery just 5 days earlier. She also made sure that the 10-year-old grandson, great-grandson, the grandson of the older daughter, had received the American flag and the box of memorabilia that was given to the family because it was a military honors service. The 10-year-old had written a very sweet letter to his great-grandpa, and the younger daughter made sure that I read that letter at the service because the little boy was too emotional to read it. In his short life, he and his great-grandpa had created a deep bond through the generous love that was going on in this family. Newfound family, I might add. Every person there benefited from knowing and loving each other. It was the most energy of love that I have experienced in a room full of people in a very, very long time. And I might add, all the many people who attended the service traveled well over 200 miles to honor this man and be with this family, this newfound family. None of those people lived anywhere near Corpus Christi. And the interment was in Corpus Christi because it was at the military cemetery there. And as I was leaving that day, I heard them all talking to each other about when they were going to visit together again and when they were going to contact each other again. On my long drive back to Rockport, I spent the time in contemplation. I was thinking about a remark that the younger daughter's husband made in a conversation that he and I had. I was complimenting his wife and family for their loving kindness, and he said, yes, They have all made a decision to look in the right direction. And I thought about that for a minute. That was an interesting way to put it. But they were looking to the future, not the past. They chose to dwell in the present moment, soaking up all of that good that was available from their newfound father and their newfound siblings and relatives. This family had made a conscious choice not to dwell on the hurtful past by looking in the wrong direction. And in doing so, they had found love. They had shared love. And they had given a young boy an opportunity to develop a deep and important relationship with his great-grandfather. A relationship that gave joy both to the great-grandfather and one that shaped the future of this young boy in a very profound way. The place where pain and hurt had occurred was moved to where it belonged, behind them. I left there that day feeling very, very grateful for having had that experience. I've done hundreds of memorial services. This one was a joy in many ways. As I was driving home again, I was thinking of what had been said there. And the younger daughter's words were ringing in my ear because she said this to me. I decided that the ideas I had had about my dad were my mom's words, not mine. All the hate and rancor I felt all those years weren't mine. I'd never even met him. And I decided I get to make up my own mind. Then she said this. I discovered he was a wonderful man. I grew to love him very quickly. I am very grateful for the years I did get to spend knowing him. And I really feel cheated that he is gone out of my life so soon. I truly already miss him. She'd only known him for 10 years. The principle that this action and this decision that she made is based on is this. Something must change in how you see a situation and in what you make of it. We can make anything of anything that we choose. All the ugly things she'd heard about her dad for her whole life were her mother's perception, not hers. Instead of allowing her mother's bitterness to influence her thinking, she chose to look at it differently and make it mean something different. And when she did, a whole new world of love opened up for her and her experience of the 45 other relatives in that service. She had realized that her thoughts and actions were somebody else's, and she knew that that had to change for her to live her life to the fullest. And that one decision that she made also changed lives for the better for everyone in that family. She was no longer frozen in the past. She was looking forward, willing to explore future possibilities. She decided to let go of her fears and take a chance on meeting her father and deciding for herself. She opened up the windows of her soul to let love in. And guys, that's always a risk, isn't it? It's the same thing if you've been betrayed in a marriage or a significant relationship. It's a risk to open up again, but you have to take that risk and not shut down. and always remember what we believe at Unity. Life is meant to be good. And we have to give life another chance. That which we call love or God, however you want to put it, they're interchangeable, is biased in our favor. This whole universe is biased in our favor. It's biased toward thriving and wholeness. All of life thrives on positive, loving, happy energy. Do any of you remember back when it was popular to talk lovingly to your plants and play beautiful music for your plants? Remember that? We did it so they would thrive. Still do. Well, my mother was a big advocate for that. And by golly, she had a lot of beautiful plants already, so it must have been something to it. But truly, we are meant to thrive. This universe is biased toward wholeness and healing. And remember, Jesus' entire ministry was about wholeness and loving and acceptance. Every time he ate with a leper or touched a sick person or allowed a sick person to touch him, he was breaking a rabbinical law. And it is what finally got him killed. And he knew these gestures put him in danger, and yet he absolutely knew that love and acceptance were the keys to living heaven on earth. Time after time, he defied the Hebrew laws because he trusted the messages he received in his prayer time and in his meditations to teach that the kingdom of heaven was here and now and not far off. The story of the Sermon on the Mount was about creating heaven on earth. He always knew that when he spoke to the crowds, he would be in danger. And he knew his enemies were all interspersed in the crowds. And when he did the Sermon on the Mount, he could see up on the hillside the Roman soldiers and the scribes and Pharisees who were really out to get him. He could see them there. And so for the Sermon on the Mount, he spoke in Aramaic idioms, which is why some of the Sermon on the Mount didn't make a whole lot of sense to us. But when he did that, he felt like that maybe he was throwing his enemies off a bit, because most of them did not speak Aramaic, which was his birth language. In Matthew chapter 5, verse 4, we're told, "Blessed are the poor in spirit, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven." I always wondered about that. Poor in spirit, what does that mean? But in Aramaic, it means don't be proud, be humble. They had totally different meanings for words 2,300 years ago. I know you're surprised to hear that. But when you find out what the words originally meant, it can make a whole lot more sense to you. The message was, don't think you're too good to do what's right for every human being, not just the ones that look and act like you, or the ones who are from your own lineage, or the ones who behave the way that you think they should. This is how the Hebrews felt and thought. But history shows us that their extreme pride was often their downfall. They fought, they judged, they often refused to work because their ancestors didn't have to work. They refused to recognize other nationalities or other religions. They had a lot of prejudice, and a good example of that prejudice was their prejudice against the Samaritans. The Hebrews believed that they were too good to breathe the same air as the people in Samaria. They actually used to walk around the country of Samaria rather than through it, which would have been a lot quicker to get to where they were going, because they refused to breathe the same air as the Samaritans. This is what prompted the parable that Jesus told of the Good Samaritan. The Hebrews were proudly, maybe overly proud, that they were Abraham's children. If they were wealthy, they thought they were too good to work or share with others or honor others. And if they were poor, they were pious and had a holier-than-thou attitude. They created all kinds of laws and rules to remain better than other nationalities, other religions, or other people's rules. As you know, they thought their God was the only God. The rituals were the only worthy rituals. And they believed they were the chosen ones to inherit God's kingdom. And what you realize as you study is that that was what Jesus was constantly teaching them not to do and be. Sadly, I think we see a lot of this attitude today. Many people think they're too good to allow people of other countries to come into our own. They don't look like us, they don't worship like us, and they take away our wealth. That's not what Jesus taught. It's the antithesis of the love and the acceptance that Jesus taught. This is why Jesus always said, the kingdom of God is at hand. It's not in the future, out there somewhere. It's now. It's this moment, how you're being and living and doing in this moment. The family that I had spoken to earlier had chosen to live their life now. They had chosen to create the kingdom of heaven now, not to look back, but from moment to moment to create a joy that has spread to an entire previously estranged family. And they have created something very special for that little 10-year-old boy. This experience has influenced his entire future. In Matthew chapter 5, verse 5, Jesus' Sermon on the Mount also said, "Blessed are the meek, for they shall inherit the earth." Now, I don't know about you guys, but I have never been meek. And I never understood that. That just did not make any sense to me at all. But meek is also an Aramaic word. And it meant to practice non-resistance. To practice non-resistance. Don't hold grudges. Don't fight. Don't quarrel. To be meek meant to the Arabic community, be content, be satisfied. It means to accept what you cannot change. We often vehemently fight what we cannot change, and it always gets us in trouble. That family couldn't change what caused the pain of the past for them or for their mothers. But they made a conscious decision and a conscious choice to accept what could not be changed. But they knew that what they could change was their perception. They could change how they chose to look at it. And they chose no judgment, just love and accept their dad for who he was at this moment in their life. And they also made the decision to love each other. They realized those old decisions were formed when they were children and that they had had no responsibility for either of their parents' actions. And it had given them amazing, amazing joy and love in their lives. There's another place in the Bible where Jesus said, Let the dead bury the dead. That was another one that always confused me. He said, let the dead bury the dead, and you come and follow me. Don't become involved in other people's problems. Let other people solve their own problems. You follow me. And what they have determined in the studies of the testaments over the years is when Jesus said, follow me, he meant follow these teachings. Follow the teachings. These two daughters didn't have to hold grudges and the hurts and the pain that their mother held. They could make a different choice, a choice to forgive and to live in the present moment. They chose not to put their attention on the past, but to focus on the now. To focus on old hurts and drag them through life like a heavy bag of bricks uses a tremendous amount of our energy. And we need all the energy we can get to face the world today. And lots of energy is what keeps us healthy. But when we carry around that bag of bricks, it keeps us from having an open heart and an open mind. And it actually shuts us down from embracing new experiences. As I was writing this talk, these words of Jesus came to my mind, and it was, Father, forgive them, for they know not what they do. My only hope is that others will forgive me when I am not aware of what I have done. None of us are perfect, and all of us fall short of doing our best sometime or another. We're all growing, we're all learning, always. We've all made mistakes. And sometimes we've made big ones. And our hope and our prayer is that that other people will treat us the same way that they would want to be treated if the table were turned. I do have one last thought. If you have been treated cruelly or see it as a pattern in a relationship, to forgive that does not mean you have to stay in that toxic relationship. But what it does mean is, don't let it steal your joy. Take care of yourself. Leave the relationship if it's abusive, but don't let it shape your future. So you might want to ask yourself today, these are things we probably should ask ourselves every day. Where are you putting your energy and your attention? What consumes you? Do you notice that you dwell in the past, that you harbor hurt feelings, that you find yourself refusing to move past hurts and wounds and offenses that happened yesterday? You can't change what happened 30 minutes before you walked in this church. And if you are harboring old thoughts, old feelings, ask yourself, who is this hurting? You know the other person probably doesn't even care. They probably didn't think anything was wrong. And they moved on down the road. So who are you hurting?
So true.
We can't let anything take away our freedom or claim the richness that life and love have to offer us. Just as I noticed that this family chose joy When we choose joy, we create joy for everyone around us. You create your heaven on earth for you and all those whose lives intertwine with